let's talk about an idea that we all kind of hold on to. This comforting thought that, justice will always win in the end, no matter how long it takes. But is that actually a fact of life, or is it more of an inspiring belief we tell ourselves? Let's dive in. You've definitely heard this one before, right? It's a really powerful line. When you've been wronged, or you feel totally unheard, this quote, it feels like a promise. It makes it sound like the universe has this built-in self-correcting button, and all we have to do is just sit back and wait. I mean, it's a really nice thought, but we have to ask the tough question here. Does reality actually work that way? Is justice some unstoppable force of nature, or is there something else going on entirely? Okay, so before we start poking holes in this idea, let's just take a second to appreciate why the saying is so popular and so powerful. Because it's not just a bunch of empty words. It fills a real human need. This idea is basically pure fuel for hope. It gives us the reason to keep pushing back when we feel completely powerless. It kind of dials down that feeling of despair. And what's really interesting is how it feels like it's proven true by those huge, high-profile cases you see on the news. The wrongful convictions that get overturned after decades, or when some big-shot fraudster finally gets caught. Those stories make the saying feel absolutely undeniably true. But if we zoom out from those inspiring headlines, a much more complicated and, let's be honest, a much harsher picture starts to form. And this is where that comforting myth really begins to fall apart. And here it is, the core of it all. The simple, really difficult truth is that for a lot of people, justice never, ever comes. Some wrongs are just never made right, some truths never see the light of day, and some people never get that closure they deserve. The world, unfortunately, just doesn't have an automatic repair function. So, why does justice fail? Well, it's usually not for one big, dramatic reason. More often, it's a whole bunch of real-world problems all piling up. Evidence gets lost, or maybe it was never there to begin with. You have huge imbalances in power and resources, money, connections, even time. Those can all be used as weapons. And sometimes the very systems that are supposed to deliver justice are flawed, or they just don't work the way they should. Now, this right here is a really crucial point. Even when justice does show up eventually, that whole delay we talked about, that's not free. The cost of waiting is enormous. We're talking years of emotional turmoil, financial ruin, lost opportunities. A so-called victory that costs you that much can honestly feel like a loss. This really brings us to two totally different ways of looking at the world. We all hope we live in what you could call a moral system, where justice is automatic, the system fixes itself, and time heals all wounds. But the reality? It's much, much closer to a probabilistic system. In this world, justice isn't a guarantee, it's a probability. And that probability only goes up with effort, with strategy, with a real struggle. The outcome depends entirely on what we do. So if that old saying is broken, what should we replace it with? Let's try to build a new belief system, one that's a little more realistic, but I think ultimately a lot more empowering. Okay, here's our first upgrade. This one immediately flips the script from just passively waiting to actively doing something. It makes it clear that justice isn't just going to show up at your door. It's something that you have to go out and fight for. This is just a straight shot of realism. It directly takes on the certainty of that original quote. And look, admitting that failure is a real possibility isn't being pessimistic. It's being strategic. It gets you ready for the reality of the fight you're facing. And this one, for me, this is the most powerful version. It completely reframes every single win for justice, not as some act of fate, but as a result of pure human effort. So when we see justice being served, we shouldn't think, oh, see, the system worked. We should be thinking, wow, someone fought incredibly hard to make that happen. All right, so we've kind of taken apart the old myth and we've built a new way of thinking. But what does that actually mean for you, practically speaking? How do you do this? Let's put together a toolkit. If there's one thing you take away from this, let it be this. Stop waiting for time to fix things. Time is neutral. It's just a resource. It's your actions that actually change things. Your goal isn't to wait for justice. It's to actively, constantly increase the chances of it happening. So how do you raise those chances? Here are 3 real, concrete steps. First, preserve your evidence. I mean everything. Document it all. Emails, texts, receipts. Write down timelines. Data is your best friend. Second, use the system. Don't be afraid to go to the official channels. Consumer protection agencies, banks, legal aid. They exist for a reason. Use them. And third, amplify your voice. Use social media, use traditional media. Do whatever it takes to get people's attention. A story that's being heard is a lot harder to ignore.
So after all that, where does that leave us? We've gone from a comforting myth to a much more complex, but I think a much more powerful understanding of what justice actually is.
And this is really the new definition. Justice isn't some fact of the universe that we can just expect to happen, like the sun coming up tomorrow. It's a belief, a powerful, really important belief that we have to be willing to fight for, to make real in a world that doesn't just hand it to us.
Ultimately, this whole thing shifts the responsibility from the universe back to us. It puts the power and, the burden right back in our hands. So the final question isn't really whether justice will arrive. It's whether you're ready to be the one to go out and get it.